welcome to the Nostalgia Train Book Club.
Woo!
Woo! The excitement's at an all-time high. What was our book? We are discussing today the Sisters Grimm. Yeah. There's a phone ringing behind me. That's kind of annoying. But yeah. Shall we introduce ourselves and our history with the book?
I feel like it's been so long since I've been on a book club stream, I don't remember how it goes.
Yeah, it goes like that. I mean, I'm Violet. I run this crazy train, and otherwise I don't really make a lot of appearances on the YouTube, AuthorTube, BookTube space these days. But other than that, yeah, I show up here once a month on this channel. And I had never heard of this book until I started the book club. When did we start the book club? 2 years ago?
Yeah, two and a half.
Yeah. So whenever I first started the book club, this book got recommended by actually a couple people brought it up over the years. So yeah, that's when it first got on my radar. I had never heard of it, but it was published in 2005. So I just would have been too old for it when it came out. That's probably why I never heard of it.
That's fair. I feel like I was like exactly the right age because in 2005 I turned 7. So I was like about the same age as some of the characters. So I did read this as a kid. I don't know if I finished the series because there's like 9 or 10 books in it, and I remember getting pretty far, but I don't think I ever got to the end. Before reading this, the only thing that I remembered from my reading as a kid was who the like big bad of the entire series is. So I remember that and no other details going into this. It was an interesting time.
Oh, that's cool. I didn't know that you had read other books in the series. Yeah, because I'm pretty sure it's 9 books. So, I'm going to put up the spoiler banner, and we can just hop into some topics. I think we should probably start with plot and pacing, huh? Do you have thoughts or feelings about the pacing? Because I have a few, but...
I mean, I don't know if this is so much pacing as like just divvying up the chapters, but I felt like the chapters were so long. Like there's only 10 chapters in the whole book, and I personally am a fan of short, quick chapters. And so sometimes like I read it as an ebook, so like the numbers were different, but like I remember the one time I was like, maybe I'll read another chapter before bed, and I hit next page and it said 63 pages left in chapter, and I'm like, I'll save that for tomorrow.
Ew, yeah. Mm-hmm. I agree with that. I prefer a shorter chapter. I don't know. In a way, I feel like it was a fast read, but also it didn't feel that like... I feel like the plot and the pacing like were conflicting with each other, in my opinion, because maybe it's just because every time they were moving, there was like new like characters introduced or like new little like fairy tale hints, and it was always almost pulling me out of the main plot. Where I was like, oh, who is this? What fairy tale is this person supposed to represent? And then I was sitting there focusing on that and not focusing on like them detectiving.
That's fair.
And that was distracting to me.
It's also like a lot shoved into such a short time frame because this takes place over like 2.5 days. And it just, I got to the end of the book and I'm like, dang, that was so much. And they've only known these people for 2 days?
Yeah. Okay, I felt that too. Definitely. Oh my gosh, sorry, I'm yawning so much. But like the basic setup of the plot, I actually quite liked. In the beginning, it almost gave me a little bit flashback to a series of unfortunate events because they were like orphans and kind of like being in different placements. And I was really drawn in at the beginning when they were like, we don't have a grandma. That's not our grandma. And like they didn't trust that it was their real grandma. Like I was like pretty invested in that actually for a while.
Yeah. What confused me was I didn't realize until like halfway through that their parents have been missing for 3 years at this point. Because they said that the younger sister, Daphne, was 7. But then later on, they said that she was in kindergarten when their parents went missing. And I'm like, I feel like you're not 7 years old in kindergarten. And then later on, they said that it had been 3 years since the parents went missing. So I was like very confused on the timeline at first. But once I got it, I'm like, okay, now I see the progression of events.
Yeah, I don't know if I had grasped that 100%, but I don't know. I like the idea of the setup of the plot. I think it works well also just for this age category. The tropes of like missing parents or orphans, long lost relative.
Yeah, I'm just a little bit like, why would the grandmother not have taken them in before then? Like, if it's been 3 years since their parents went missing?
Oh, I thought they had an answer for that, but I can't remember.
I don't know. It's been weeks since I read it.
Yeah, some of the world building just about Fairyport Landing in general is a little bit. I mean, it's completely fairy tale, so you kind of just have to accept that this is a weird place that they're at.
This is also a book meant for like 10 to 12-year-olds, so.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going on to the next banner. I'm going to stop yawning. Oh my god.
It's late where you're at. It's fine.
It's not that late. Actually, speaking of Fairyport Landing, maybe we should talk about the setting and the world building. Because I have that banner left over from one of our discussions.
I mean, I think it's really fun, but I am a big fan of like mashups like this. Like, I watched Once Upon a Time when I was in high school and was so into it, so this feels like a much younger version of that because it's pretty much the same setup where all the fairy tale characters are real. And so I thought it was a lot of fun getting to meet everyone and like the little tiny details, like how Prince Charming has been married to like all the different princesses at different points. Like, well, yeah, because he's Prince Charming. Like, I thought that was so much fun.
Yeah, I did actually quite like the setting. I thought it was cute. I don't know even about this like curse seemed a little bit weird. But again, it fits for the genre and the tone, I think. With the Grimm family being, yeah. I can't remember what the terminology they used in the book was.
I don't remember either.
Yeah, well, anyways, they're the people that have to stay there because they have to.
It creates an interesting dynamic because then you have like some of the people from the fairy tales are glad that they have this protected space, but then other people are like, no, I hate the Grimms because I want to get out of here. So that's a really cool dichotomy to have.
Yeah, I kind of liked that too. At first, I was not quite sure how that was going to play out, but it did make it an interesting element to the story. And again, I do just feel like that, I have this secret, really interesting family that we knew nothing about trope is also
it's a classic.
Fun. It's classic. And for the age category, it's fun. Yeah, otherwise I liked it. It was cool seeing all the different fairy tale characters. This is like the fastest I've gone through banners ever.
It's a 200-page book, and it's like not very nuanced, so.
It really isn't. Fairy tale tropes, characters, and Easter eggs, because I feel like a lot of elements were like introduced, and then it would be like, yeah, it's supposed to be references to fairy tales.
I feel like a lot of characters are like name dropped to be important later. Like, we don't meet Snow White in this book, but she's mentioned a couple times, so like, you know, in later books in the series, Snow White's going to be important.
It definitely feels like anything goes because there was also things in here that I wouldn't think of as like classic fairy tales because they had like Dorothy's slippers.
And Puck from A Midsummer Night's
Dream. I was just going to say Puck and Puck. When Puck showed up, I was like, what? You're not a fairy tale? Like,
oh, I remember having the biggest crush on Puck when I read this as a kid. It was so funny reading this. I'm like, really? That's what I thought was like attractive when I was 10 years old.
Yeah, well, I think they try to make him like a cool. bad boy character, so why not?
Yeah, I think it's really interesting how there's like other stuff you wouldn't necessarily think of as the classic fairy tales pulled in. It adds an extra element to it.
Yeah, it keeps you on your toes where you don't know when they're gonna introduce something. It, like I said, it did a little bit sometimes distract me from the plot, just all the fairy tale things going on. It was all a little bit overwhelming at sometimes, but then other times it was really fun. Also, like Officer Hampstead when he got introduced, I was like, Hampstead, well, who are you supposed to be? I was like I was like sitting for so long trying to figure out who this was supposed to be, and I was like, oh, okay.
The Three Little Pigs being the police force is so funny to me, and then Ichabod Crane coming in. I feel like it's a great dynamic.
Yeah, it was really good. That was really charming, for lack of a better word.
Yeah. I feel like a lot of them were like kind of obvious though. Like you meet, is it Mr. Canis? Is that his name?
Oh, Mr. Canis? Yeah, that one was so obvious. And then they made it like seem like this huge reveal, and it was like, well, duh.
But I mean, I guess there is like a little bit of a reveal where he's like the wolf, but it's not really him. It's like this thing inside of him. I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, but I guess if you're like a younger reader and you don't know like Canis, like the word isn't like putting in your head.
We are adults.
Yeah. So maybe that was mind blowing. And I just didn't know it. Were there any other Easter eggs though? I'm sure there was a bunch that I just didn't highlight.
You have the magic mirror.
Magic mirror. I liked that part.
I like that they can go into the mirror and it's not like, I mean, like, I guess he's trapped in there, but it's not like this prison or whatever. It's like a storage room. I think that's really funny.
Yeah, that was a good element. Okay, wait, let's see what other... Okay, I put the banner detective tropes, but like... I mean, it's called the fairy tale detectives. But... I mean...
It's a very, like, elementary school understanding of what a detective is.
Yeah. Definitely. I don't even know what tropes they would have. I mean, they did have a run-in with the law enforcement. They tried to follow some clues, but otherwise it doesn't scream detective, I guess, to me.
Yeah, it's just kids trying to solve a mystery.
Yeah, it's a little bit weird that that's like the subheading or title of the book. But I guess since it's the first in the series, Fairy Tale Detectives probably set up the series really well. I don't know. I don't remember. Do they do like a little mystery in every book?
Probably. What's the next one called?
The Unusual Suspects.
That gives us nothing.
No. But it says suspects. That sounds like, a case.
It feels like, what is the movie with Little Red Riding Hood as the main character and she's like solving a thing?
Hoodwinked?
Yeah, it's giving me those vibes. Not that I've seen that movie anytime in the past like 10 years, but
I remember being really bad. Yeah, so I would definitely say like it just has a very loose like mystery plot, and it's, to me, it's so much more focused on like the world and the fairy tales, and that's clearly the main.
Yeah, the actual like mystery of why the giant showed up and everything was very obvious to me. I feel like it was foreshadowed so heavily.
Yeah.
As soon as the characters are like, I think it's this thing, I'm like, why would it be that way? Like, it didn't make any sense.
Yeah, I didn't feel invested in the plot at all.
Yeah, I was very much there for the characters in the world.
Yeah, I agree. That really seemed to be the main focal point of the story. Speaking of characters. Do you feel like our two protagonists, Sabrina and Daphne, like had distinct personalities?
They felt to me kind of like caricatures of what like how old is Sabrina? Like 11? Like an 11-year-old and a 7-year-old are. Like they didn't seem very fleshed out. But then again, I feel okay with that because this is like a book about fairy tales and everything. And in fairy tales, you tend to have caricatures of people and not like nuanced stuff. So,
Yes, but like if I was like gonna throw a comparative, like how we talked about a series of fortunate events, where that has the three main characters, and they each have like a shtick that's their thing. And I kind of wish that these two characters would have been like a little bit more like that.
that's fair. No, I see that.
You know, that it would have been more easy to say, oh, Sabrina is the this one, Daphne is the this one, but it was kind of more like, oh, whoever just needed a line of dialogue at this point, and like you said, their ages and
yeah. Sabrina's just like grumpy, almost teenager, and Daphne is hyperactive.
Yeah.
What is a 7? Is that just like a child? There's no
Child,
word.
yeah. Yeah. They were just, representing their ages, and I don't know if we can call that a personality trait. But there was a lot of cool side characters in this, like the grandma.
I love the grandma. I think she's so fun. I feel like she should have explained things a little bit sooner. That's on her, but also she didn't expect them to not know anything.
Yeah. It was kind of an awkward situation with their dad sort of keeping that all a secret. But like I said, I actually liked that at the beginning, like we got them being untrusted. Like, I don't believe that's my real grandma. I thought that was so funny. I don't know why that was really funny for me.
I mean, if your parents went missing for 3 years and then this lady shows up and is just like, "Hey, I'm your grandma that your dad told you was dead," like I don't think you'd believe them either.
Yeah, I just feel like if you didn't read the back cover of the book, you would think that this was like them getting abducted by a random woman. Like if you didn't know like what you were reading, if you just read this blind,
Yeah,
you might be like going on with that plot. Who else is interesting in the book? I mean, obviously, I was just gonna say Jack was supposed to be, I guess, the curveball of the story, but it wasn't that.
Very obvious what's going on.
Yeah.
I like Charming. I feel like Mayor Charming is my favorite character just because he's like a bad guy, but he's not a villain. He's kind of just selfish and greedy, but in a fun way.
I agree. I 100% agree. I actually think Charming was done really well to sort of be the red herring villain. Yeah.
And then they push the button in his office and all the pictures turn around and it's all Snow White and he's like, "Don't look at that. That's fine."
Yeah.
That was so funny.
I forgot about that. Oh my gosh.
I think that was my favorite part is when they go to the ball because A, it feels very fairy tale to go to a ball, and B, I feel like that's where all of the plot really came together.
Yeah, because like I said, for a while the plot felt a little bit like I don't know. It didn't really feel detective-y or adventure. It just felt like, I don't know. Things were happening just to introduce characters.
Yeah. I wonder if that's just because it is the first book in a series or if all of the books are like that.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering too. I was like, this probably is just having first book in a long series syndrome where we need to be introduced to the sort of vibe in all the main places and players and just dynamics of the town.
Yeah, I agree. So you have the second book. Are you planning on, I assume, reading the second one, but like
Yeah, I think I would give this one a try. I don't, because I have it. If I didn't have it, I don't know if I would have sought it out.
Mm-hmm.
But because I already own it, I might as well, right?
That's my feeling. Like, I'm not gonna go out of my way to continue the series, but if I like find it somewhere, I'm like intrigued enough to just see how it goes.
Yeah. Yeah, because like you said, like reading this as an adult is not the most compelling. I think as an adult reader, you can appreciate a lot more of those like fairy tale Easter eggs, where like a child, like they might be being introduced to some of those things for the first time. Like they
Mm-hmm.
probably wouldn't know who Puck is. Like,
Yeah, or Excalibur.
or yeah,
Girl knows Excalibur.
they probably don't know all the different references. They probably just know the Disney versions of fairy tales.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. So as an adult, you know all of them, obviously. So, and the times where the author's trying to be a little bit cheeky.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, speaking of that, we can do prose and writing style. Do we have thoughts?
I honestly don't remember because, like I said, it's been a couple of weeks. I don't remember there being anything I disliked about the writing style, so at least there's that.
For me, it was fine. It was just fine.
Yeah.
It wasn't like, I don't know, gripping or it wasn't really anything extra, but it wasn't, yeah. It didn't standard in a bad way either.
I think that's a fair assessment. Very middle of the road.
Yeah, because we've read other books that have been a little bit convoluted and other ones that have been very like voicey, and this is just clear, concise. It fits
kind of just tells you what's happening.
Yeah, it fits the age and the genre. I don't know. I think I sometimes like a little bit lighter middle grade, but there's a lot happening in here, so there's a lot of things that needed to be described.
It gets a little bit darker than I expected. Like, they talk about death a lot, and then you see, like, a death on page. I did not remember that happening. I was like, whoa.
Yeah, it's not like that light of a fairy tale fun, but fairy tales are a little bit dark.
Yeah.
I don't know. The girls look really juvenile in the cover photo.
I like the art style on the cover. I think that's really cool.
I do too, especially like this one, the second one. I think that looks wicked. With some evil rabbits in the corner.
Oh, interesting.
So I'm like, I wonder what that's about with those rabbits.
I'm still scarred from Watership Down.
I know. It's my ultimate thing I think of now anytime I see rabbits. Like we replaced the artwork here in our apartment. I was looking for photos or pictures, and a lot of them were animal pictures, and I went back in my tabs and so many were rabbits, and I just can't look at them the same anymore. It's just ruined rabbits for me. Otherwise there was nothing crazy about the prose. Were there any themes, symbols, and motifs?
We hear about, was it the Scarlet Hand? Is that what it's called? I feel like that's going to be a symbol, but it just, for now, is something that is mentioned.
Yeah, it's sort of a setup for the rest of the series.
I feel like the themes are all pretty basic, where it's just going to be a series about, like, growing up and realizing that your childhood can't last forever.
Yeah, like basic things like family, community. Because I'm assuming that the series is going to be them rescuing their parents.
Yeah, I would assume so. That would make sense.
Based off of what we learned in this book and where it left off. And they also set Puck up as like he's like going to be a main character in the story going forward. And and I'm assuming all the people who we met around Fairyport Landing are going to stay as characters. I wouldn't. I don't know. Because I know that the second book says it's them going to school.
Oh,
So
that's
maybe.
where Snow White's going to come in because she's the teacher, isn't she?
Yeah, I was just going to say then we would end up meeting some teachers and probably some students. Which, yeah, that's kind of a little bit also what intrigued me about continuing on. I was like, the school setting, I'm like, oh, that it's not going to be exactly the same as them just gallivanting around town. We're getting a little bit new setting, new character set. So maybe it's going to then slowly build up the Fairyport Landing universe. As far as symbols and motifs, that's a great question. Like nothing in specific. It's all just random fairy tale references. I don't know if it goes any deeper than that.
It definitely would have to see if things recur in future books before you can talk about that kind of thing. Because right now it's all just stuff that shows up.
Yeah. Stuff that shows up. That's what it is. We're not even at the half-hour mark, and I think I'm out of banners. There's not that much to say about this book.
Yeah, it's a short book. It's very simple. But sometimes that's all a book has to be. This wasn't a bad book. I did have a fun time. I just wasn't completely wowed by it.
I would pretty much have the same opinion. It gripped me in right at the beginning, and it went by fast, even though I wish the plot was a little more intriguing. It's a middle grade story about fairy tales. Like you said, kind of Once Upon a Time-esque, but kids. But I do love a long ongoing series, so that gives me hope that maybe the next one will get better. But because I wish that the girls had a little bit more distinct personalities, that's the one thing I think that could have been improved for me.
Yeah, that's fair. I feel like I just wanted a little bit more in general. Just a little bit more depth to the characters, a little bit more reasoning why we're meeting certain people.
Yes, for sure.
Instead of being wow, isn't this a cool thing? Okay, moving on. Yeah.
It very much felt like, wow, this is a cool thing, now moving on. That's a great way to describe what the book felt like. Hey, did you know there's police officers here that are the three of the pigs? Okay, cool. Next thing. Oh, Prince Charming is the mayor? Okay, next thing. Oh, Puck, that fairy from this other, not exactly a fairy tale story?
Maybe intention is the word that I'm looking for. I wish things were placed in the story a little more intentionally, and maybe they were, and you just don't see why they're there until later books. But, if I'm not interested in this first one to continue, then it doesn't matter, so.
Yeah, I agree. Intention, that's a good way to put it. Because some things felt... what was the point of the ruby slippers? Obviously they serve a purpose, but it seemed just having them for the sake of having them.
Yeah, they definitely could have just walked over there or something. You didn't need to have the ruby slippers.
Yeah, it just felt like they just wanted to reference another story. But yeah, other than that, I actually don't have anything else more to say about the book. I would consider picking up book 2, or at least looking into it, give it a few chapters.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, well, depending on the chapter length.
If book 2 goes the same way as book 1, I don't think I would continue on with it. But if book 2 actually gives you something to be interested in.
Oh, I actually just realized that the copy that I got, somebody left a bookmark in it. They only made it to chapter 2, so.
Ooh.
It's not looking good.
Hey, free bookmark.
Yeah, free bookmark. So that's everything. I'm going to put the banner down. It was a good pick. I like to have some solid middle grade picks thrown in there, just because I feel like there's not as many. I feel like it's so many YA picks. Because next month we'll be back on our YA shit with Vampire Academy. I kept mixing up Vampire Academy and Vampire Diaries.
Vampire Diaries is not YA.
Yeah. So
I want to read Vampire Academy so bad, but I don't have a copy. I cannot find it online anywhere. And my like used book sites that I like to look at, they're all so expensive. Like the one that I saw, it was more expensive to buy a used copy than to buy a new one from Amazon. So I'm like,
I hate when that happens. I had to do that with Throne of Glass. That's the only book I ever had to buy brand new for the book club.
Like I really want to read it, but like, do I want to read it enough to buy a copy? That has yet to be seen. We'll see throughout the month if I end up getting it.
Oh, you know what I forgot to mention about Fairy Tale Detectives? I saw that they're planning an animated series for it.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, I saw that on the Wikipedia page. It said that I think Apple TV has the rights to it. So, yeah, maybe it becomes a TV show. I don't know. But as an animated show, it could work really cool.
Yeah, I think animated is definitely the way to go for that kind of story.
Yeah, because like you said, like for like the older kind of fairy tale thing, there's like Once Upon a Time. Like that's... So if you're going to really target a young audience, put it animated. It could be a lot of fun. Vampire Diaries, I have never seen it or read it, so this is going to be a new one for me.
Vampire Academy.
Vampire Academy. Yeah, there's Vampire Diaries. I've seen the show, so that would have been a lie.
Right? There's a show for Vampire Academy, or is there a movie?
I don't know if it's a show or a movie. I think it's a movie, but I've heard people talk about it all the time. I just never.
I haven't seen it. I've read the books. I read all 6 of the original series. I never read the spin-offs, but I remember going real hard for the books in high school. So that's why I'm like, oh, I really want to return to this, but
I think we could get Crystal on board. She loves vampires.
This is Vampire Academy is Jess's favorite series.
Yeah, I think it's a good pick. I'm excited for it. I forgot, what was it up against in the poll? I don't even remember.
What was the category?
That's an excellent question.
I remember every other book on that poll, but I don't remember.
Where would I even find that? In my Drive folder, I bet. This is very riveting live show content.
Listen, man, it's just us here. There's going to be like 5 people who watch the first 5 minutes of the live stream VOD.
Oh, it was up against Marked.
Oh, yes, which I definitely do not want to read because I hated that series.
I don't know anything about it. It's just another one of those ones that like I've seen everywhere. Yeah.
It's one of those series that started out so strong, but then by the time you got to like book 10 or 12, they were like, why are we still pumping these out?
There's that many of them? No wonder I've seen them everywhere.
I stopped reading when the villain of the book was a giant bird. I was like, I can't do this anymore. And that was like 7 or 8 books in, and there were still so many more.
Yeah, there's just a lot of, like I said, YA books that really fall into this sort of nostalgia category. I just actually watched the Netflix version of Uglies.
Oh, how was that?
It was terrible. It was really bad. And then I was like, maybe it's good we didn't do the book. And I'm like, I would still read the book. I'm just like, I would just sign myself up for reading trashy YA forever.
Have you read the book at all?
No, I didn't even know that it was like a dystopian thing. Because I feel like the original cover is so vague. It's just like an up close of a person's face.
Yeah. I mean, no surprise, I have read Uglies. I feel like I've read 90% of book club books that we've done, but that's because, like, middle school and high school, I was reading like 500 pages a day every day. Like I was reading everything. So I covered my bases, I guess.
Yeah, that's pretty good. You know what? Maybe for the book club, I should also look at some more of those like real vintage ones, like Babysitter's Club or something. I never really looked into doing something like
That'd
that.
be fun.
Or Boxcar Children. Those are like, but those are I think less than middle grade. They're like real simple.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah, we got plenty of options.
I know. That's why when people said, "Oh, man, this concept for a book club, you're gonna run out of things to do," I'm like, "Nah, we won't." There's a bunch of random stuff from people's childhood reading that. You know,
And with every year, we unlock a new year of releases.
that's true. It's so true. And like, look, this book I had never heard of it, but other people told me about it multiple times. And then, like I said, then I found these out in the wild at garage sales and like Goodwill. I saw them everywhere. So I was like, okay, clearly this was something because I've seen copies of it.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. Anyways, so I think we can call it there. We did pretty good.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining me this month.
Anytime. You know, I'm always down to chat about books.
Yeah. Speaking of which, you probably have some stuff to promote.
Yes. Next month is Laudathon. It is a readathon to celebrate the release of What Doesn't Break by Cassandra Caw, which is the newest book in the Critical Role world. There are reading prompts and activity prompts, so check out my channel for the announcement if you are curious. That's running the entire month of October.
Yeah, I'm excited for that. I love a month-long readathon because, yeah, when you're busy, then you can cram it into when you have time.
Mm-hmm.
And the prompts are also very fun. So
Thank you. I put a lot of thought into prompts. I don't want to do like basic ones that are like read a book of this genre or something. I want to think about it.
yeah, I think if I did ever come back to doing YouTube stuff, I would lean more into booktube stuff because reading is fun. So, okay. I have to press the outro. Bye.